So I got a open letter to the scientists. I don't know why it doesn't. I don't know why I can't put the thumbnail on there. What's this do here? There's a pill. Well, yeah, it don't. It doesn't do anything. Anyway, what's this? Yeah, so I want to do like an open letter or call out, if you will, to scientists, secular scientists. It seems they've hijacked the field of the classrooms and basically stolen the science classrooms, stolen the educational system, taking it away from the people that started science, which is the creationists that started scientists. So it's basically been hijacked. And I really believe it's doing a lot of harm and discredit to the sciences. In some cases, an embarrassment to science. And it covers just about every field of science, with the exception of maybe physics. Because physics is what it is, and that's all it is, and there's really not much you can say or do about it. And unless you start getting into the origin and cosmology, then cosmology, you got all kinds of crazy ideas going on. You're looking for a natural cause for natural things, which is kind of absurd to begin with. Because how can a natural thing cause a natural thing? It's just absurd. And the energy is running down. Where did it come from? And of course, it is running down. The energy in the universe, of course, is built up into stars and black holes and everything. And how did it get built up? How did that matter get compressed and built up? And why is it running down? And it's kind of absurd to think that you could explain cosmology, stars and everything without having a cause. Of course, you can say you don't know the cause, and that's fine. But just don't be saying that the cause is natural, because you can't have a natural cause for natural things. I mean, natural things don't explain natural things because they're bound up energy that's running down, and there's no explanation as to how energy got built up. Okay, that's one thing. That's one field. That's cosmology. Is kind of a joke. Some people saying that everything came from nothing, which is even more of a joke. And if you have a fluctuation, you got time and distance, you got space, so it's not nothing. And so then we go to the field of biology. And biology has no explanation either, no valid explanation. it's kind of amusing that people would be saying, you know, we're gonna explain and talk about evolution, the the different species, the speciation, and we're not going to talk about abiogenesis because that's a different field. That's a different topic. When we don't want to talk about abiogenesis because it's too hard to explain. Okay, and turns out that abiogenesis has the same problem as evolution because both of them require programming that's not even there. I mean, sure, sure you can take a dog and you can get all kinds of variations, but you already have a dog. Now, if you're going to go from I suppose simple cell or single cell, it's not so easy to get from a single cell to a dog, but you don't like to talk about that. You like to talk about dogs, you know, speciating or cats speciating or whatever it is speciating, lizards speciating so that they can no longer go back to where they came from or mix with the population they came from because they changed so much. Well, it doesn't prove evolution because you didn't get anything new. You just changed what was already there. But yeah, you don't want to talk about abiogenesis because it's just kind of absurd to be talking about abiogenesis. But you want to talk about evolution, you want to push it down people's throats and say that, oh well, people that believe in God believe in evolution too. Yeah, that's because you brainwashed people all over the world and took over the classrooms. So it's just you just take the power and the position by force, and you shove out the creationists and don't allow them to come in. And I've even heard scientists say we don't want creationists in the science room. Why not? Creationists gave you science. Why not? Creationists have the answer as to where everything came from. Because if it wasn't a natural thing, a natural cause, it was a supernatural cause. And that's easy to explain. And the only way that you could have evolution would be if you had well, that's kind of silly anyway, a cell. If you had top-down evolution, where you had one cell that had all the information for everything and it just separated out into everything there is, which is kind of absurd, but that's what you would have to have for evolution to occur. It'd have to be top-down. There's no such thing as bottom-up evolution where you have to find and acquire programming that's not even there, that never was there, and there's no way to get it there. That's why you don't want to talk about abiogenesis because there's no way to get the programming in the first place. And once you get supposed programming, all you have is bottleneck with information that's not there all the way to your mythical, magical, supposed evolution. And it's of course it's been around for a couple hundred years or so, whatever, and it's in the thinking in the culture and everything. Instead of saying progression or development, they say evolution. That's not, it's absurd. Evolution doesn't exist. Things don't evolve, they develop or progress with intent and purpose. And if you don't have intent and purpose, you're not going to have any living organism because everything requires intent and purpose. So that's another field that's become a total disgrace to humanity. So biology, and just because you don't want to accept that there's a creator, that there's someone greater than you, and somebody that you might have to listen to and take advice from. Okay, so the other scientific field would be biology. Biology is not biology, geology. The next field is geology, and it's another field of science that's been totally destroyed and been totally made a mockery of. See, this is something. This is why you need to let the creationists in, because they are. I mean, they will tell you that what caused geology, how geology got there. It's very simple. It's the fossils. They're the result of the global flood. Of course, that includes paleontology. Geology has the fossils in the sediment layers, and it's all around the world. There's no way you can explain the sediment layers because they're consecutive water deposited sediment layers over a mile deep around the world, sometimes as much as 2 miles deep in the Middle East. So here you have all this evidence of geology, and people are looking at it and saying, "Oh, it's millions of years." You can't have millions of years between water deposited sediment layers. It's absurd. Totally absurd. You have to be out of your mind to be saying something like that. Sediment layers, they're water deposited. They're one on top of the other with very little erosion over a mile deep. Everywhere around the world, on every continent, including Antarctica. And it's more than 100 million cubic miles of material. It makes up the continents, makes up most of every continent, besides the igneous rock that's pushing up as well. It is also the result of a global flood. And people will ask, well, what happened to the water? The water drained off the land, settled in the oceans. The oceans opened up, went deep, and things like that happened. A couple hundred years later, the mid-Atlantic ridge opened up, continent slid over, it buckled under the Marianas Trench on the other end of the Pacific Ocean. And that's it's kind of obvious what happened. And so we had the global flood. No one even talks about the global flood, but that would have to have a cause too. It could have been caused by something striking the earth, one form or another, and apparently it destroyed the whole earth, the whole atmosphere and everything, which seemed to be much better world before the flood because people lived much longer, and water would come up and water the plants at night, probably with the the help of the moon, and everything was fine. And then the earth was destroyed. All the animals were land animals were buried along with marine animals in consecutive layers of water deposited sediments everywhere around the world. That's the evidence. It's so obvious. And you're hindering science, you're hindering knowledge, not only science, but knowledge, which is the same thing, because you're excluding the judgment of God, you're excluding the creation of the world by God, just because you don't want to face the reality of God in life. So you take over all the scientists, you brainwash kids, you brainwash everybody, including people that go to church, and you tell them all this nonsense of having a natural cause of everything, which is totally absurd. It's totally contrary to everything we know in science. So please make a note of that and let the creationists into science classroom, because they have a lot to help in regard to science, because otherwise you'll be wasting our money looking for aliens like you're doing right now. Wasting tax money looking for aliens. So you better be letting the creationists into the science room.